All right, Nathan, are you ready to get going with our final discussion of the book series, a series of unfortunate events?
Didn't we already do that?
Well, I mean, kind of like we did the last five chapters of the end.
Yeah, chapters 9 to 13.
Right, but we didn't do the last book, which is within Book the 13th. And this one is titled Book the Last, or labeled Book the Last, and it is chapter 14.
All right. Well, 13 has been such a significant number in the series. Why not end it with 14?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Hello and welcome to Woeful Wednesdays. Nathan reads a series of unfortunate events. Ignore the tattoo. My name is Nathan.
And I'm Tyler.
This is our actual last discussion on the book series, unless for some
Yes.
reason we feel compelled to get into it later on at some point to do some separate discussions, which could happen.
Yeah.
But certainly with other books like the unauthorized biography of Lemony Snicket, and there's a couple other things I think you had mentioned that there's
Yeah.
some.
The
Um,
Beatrice letters and question.
Right. So if there's enough demand for that, then we might get to those. But basically, you're going to have to demand it, folks,
Yes.
because I'm not sure that I'm offering right now, but I'm offering to acquiesce to a demand. I'll say
Right.
that. So
Yes. Yeah.
we are talking about the last chapter slash book in the series. So chapter 14 in book the 13th, the end. And then beyond that, we're also going to have a wrap up because if you did not know, we have been reading through the entire book series. So this is my first time reading through a series of unfortunate events. Tyler has read this several times before, including as a middle grade reader, and we've done 3 videos for each book. So if you are new to this for whatever reason and you're discovering this video for the first time, then I do encourage you to look at my playlist on my channel to go back to the very beginning with the bad beginning and go through all of them. And I encourage you to read along and
Yep.
participate and comment and all of that stuff, and I will respond to them. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we do have a sponsor, and then we will get into the actual discussion of chapter 14, and then an overall discussion of some of our favorite moments and least favorite moments and characters and inventions and all of that from the series. All right,
Mhm.
so our sponsor for this week is the Daily Punctilio, the very best in fake news. Listen, people, you do not want to be getting second tier fake news. You don't want news stories that seem like they're fake, but they've actually got a little bit of veracity in them. You don't want to be getting news stories that are just so outlandish that you can't possibly think that maybe they're actually news. You want to get the absolute best in fake news. Go to the Daily Punctilio. The names are going to be kind of mixed up. The events are going to be kind of mixed up, but there's going to be just enough truth in there that it convinces you that maybe something kind of sort of happened. And yeah, I mean, you've got to keep up with fake news. You want to be a completely uninformed citizen, like most people.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
Yep.
make sure that you're keeping up with your fake news. All
Absolutely.
right. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Ignore the tattoo! Nathan unfortunately reads a series of unfortunate events at an unfortunate age, which in this case is being used to indicate that he is entirely too old to be reading this for the first time. Okay, so we were talking about chapter 14 slash book 14. What is it actually called? I forget. It's
Uh,
terrible that I forget.
it is called, the title of it is Chapter 14, but it says Book the Last.
Book the last. Okay.
Yes.
So I've got plot summary duty. So I will give a very brief summary of this chapter and then, or book, and then we'll have an overall discussion of it and then more generally the series as a whole. So basically, it picks up basically a year after chapter 13, where the Baudelaires have been on the island for approximately a year. They've been taking care of Kit's baby that we find out is named Beatrice, which also happens to be the name of the ship because presumably the ship has been named after Beatrice, so Lemony Snicket's love interest, right?
Hmm. Yes. And
Um,
Beatrice Baudelaire as well. Uh,
right,
yes,
right.
because it says during the opening passage there that the boat was that Bertrand named it uh, after her. So
Right. And so they've been on the island for a while, and they've been safe from the treachery of the world, but they believe that it is probably time to go back and immerse themselves in the
mhm.
world.
Yeah,
And that's basically what happens.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they build a ship, and
That's
they
about
like
right.
Violet fixes up a ship, and they just head off into the great blue yonder.
Yes, or the Great Black Yonder, if you read the copyright information um, on, I don't know how to refer to the page, but
Okay.
the facing page to the dedication
Hmm.
with the copyright information, then we get a quote from, it is in the original French, from Charles Baudelaire's The Voyage or
Hmm.
Le Voyage. Um, so it translates to, O death, old captain, it is time, let's weigh anchor. This country wearies us, O death, let us set sail. Though the sea and the sky are black as ink, our hearts, which you know well, are filled with rays of light.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so it's appropriate to end it off with a quote from Charles Baudelaire, who is presumably the namesake of the Baudelaire children.
Right. Yeah, I did not catch that. So I didn't even look at it. But yeah.
Right. um, yeah, so it's an interesting inclusion, and certainly it raises some questions again about like, okay, what is this island supposed to be, and all of this. This country wearies us, oh death. Um, so is this supposed to be? And I'm not familiar with the original poem, so I'm afraid I'm not much help there. But uh, I guess the island is supposed to be the island of death, which is sort of what I had.
I don't think so, because in the poem itself, then there's a virgule, comma in between. It says "Ce pays nous ennuie, au mort." It's comma, "O death." It's like this this
Mm,
country tires us, "O death." Like
right.
not,
Okay. Yeah.
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 The comma in there is separating it, where it's saying like we're feeling to the point of death, but not so much
Okay.
that the island or the country is death.
Okay. Yeah.
As far
Um,
as I can tell. I mean, I'm not familiar enough with the poem, but I'm pretty sure
right.
that's what it means.
Yeah. Even, starting off, O death, old captain, it is
Yeah.
time. So death is the captain here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's it's an odd one. And again, because we're not very familiar with the poem, then I'm afraid we're not much help in terms of analyzing that. But of course, the poem being titled Le Voyage is appropriate for the children setting sail here at the end of their adventure.
Right. Um, okay, so I've just got kind of general comments on this chapter, and I don't know if you've got more specific ones to get into.
Yeah, I've got a few kind of specific ones.
All right, why
Um,
don't you go for it then?
sure. All right, so on page two, then this is where we find out that that Violet could have been named Lemony if she were a boy,
Right.
um, which I think is a fun little detail that they're all laughing at his name and he agrees
Yes.
to actually write this.
Right. Right.
um, and then yeah, where did they get that idea? From someone who died, presumably, Klaus said, remember the family custom. So it seems like they maybe thought that Lemony, like that the Baudelaire parents thought that Lemony Snicket was dead at the time when Violet was pregnant, which may have been, the reason for Beatrice deciding to marry Bertrand instead of Lemony, as
Hmm.
she presumed that Lemony was already dead. So.
Right.
Um, yeah, so all of that, I don't know why, they ended up not staying together and all of that that's talked about in the series, and that seems to be what it is.
Yeah, and then he does talk about that a lot. Like there's constantly all of these like jokes with his author bios of like presumed to be dead, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
not really, and yeah.
And certainly that reference to on page 10 of this. There are others who say that they, meaning the Baudelaires, perished at sea, although rumors of one's death crop up so often and are so often revealed to be untrue. So yeah, just many references throughout the series, but certainly seems like he was presumed dead at some point.
Right. Right.
All right, also on page 3, there is the uh, you know what heartbroken means, Sonny said, and then nodded as the baby murmured Abelard, which is a reference to Peter Abelard,
Hmm.
um, who was a medieval French scholastic philosopher, theologian, and preeminent logician. I never know how to say that word.
I think you got it.
Studier of law. Okay. His love for and affair with Eloise d'Argenteuil uh, has become legendary. Um, so, yeah, I don't know the story of that affair, but clearly it is relevant here.
Sure. Sure it is.
I don't know.
I
In
don't know
terms of
either.
heartbroken.
I guess. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, that could be it.
Yeah. All right, and then I think I just had one other note, which is on page um, on page the bottom of page 5, leading into page 6. Um, uh, Bottom of page 5. Um, For all they knew, the islanders had spread the medusoid mycelium and the entire world might be poisoned. This, however, seemed unlikely, as the world, no matter how monstrously it may be threatened, has never been known to succumb entirely. Which I think is a very interesting, way of putting it, coming from Lemony Snicket, who sees the world as being so bleak and treacherous and all of this, that, you can never snuff out the light entirely.
Yep. It is an interesting moment. It really is.
Hmm.
And I wonder, even with this, um, I don't know. Eddie, I had a couple ideas, but it's fine. I don't feel like they're super relevant. But you're right that it is an interesting moment that Snicket brings up.
Hmm. And yeah, that was it. Also, you were correct in book 6 when you said that Beatrice was the name of their parents.
Right.
Which I tried very hard to not give away, but yeah. Considering that it's, the final reveal of the series, then I
Oh,
think, I don't know.
I'm really proud that I've seen through a middle grade series. My 3 degrees in English lit are clearly worth it.
Yes.
I don't get to be proud. I
Right.
don't. Um,
Yeah.
all right. So I did want to mention, because like I said, I've got some general comments about this chapter, but then the last illustration that we have, if you
Hmm.
turn there, I don't know if you caught it or not, but it's a question mark in the
Yes.
water.
Yeah.
And so it's them sailing off, and who knows what's going to actually happen to them. And then it's another reference to this whole Jewish understanding of the afterlife, of Sheol, of we don't know what it is, and it's a mystery, and we all have to eventually move into that great mystery of whatever comes beyond, without necessarily knowing what it is.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's basically what happens with the Baudelaires, that we
Yeah.
don't really know what happens to them. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to me why Snicket doesn't know what happens to them. Does it make any sense to you that he's been able to track them all this time?
So it's interesting because the Netflix series sort of gets into this, and also I believe the Beatrice letters, because the Beatrice letters refers not only to letters which were sent to Lemony, or exchanged between Lemony Snicket and Beatrice Baudelaire, or whatever her name happened to be prior to that, but also between Lemony Snicket and Beatrice Baudelaire the second, or Beatrice Snicket, um, Kit's daughter. And so at some point,
Oh,
then
okay.
they run into each other, or come in contact with each other. And so he finds out a great deal of information from her. But I think presumably the Baudelaires are separated from Beatrice, you know, yeah, at some point, and I'm not sure when that is, or anything like that. But yeah, it's an interesting detail.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then kind of my general comments, and I'm glad that this chapter focused in on this, is this idea that, oh, we're going to go back into the world even though it's full of treachery,
Hmm.
and um, well, it's time to immerse ourselves in the world,
Right.
and that we need to essentially be strong enough to resist the treachery, not just to avoid it.
Yeah.
That's basically what their parents would want. And I guess I've said it before that I really dislike. I don't have much respect for this worldview, because there seems to be something to the idea that if they are on the island where they are incapable of engaging in treachery, that somehow is the same as being good. And it denies free will. And so the thing is, this is what I'm saying. Like when Snicket, or really Handler, is talking about religious concepts and specifically biblical concepts, that I'm like, stop. You clearly don't even have a decent foundation, because one of the most foundational principles of, you know, like any kind of biblical worldview, whether it's a Judaic or a Christian worldview, is that God gave people free will.
Hmm.
That's what happens in the Garden of Eden, which I don't even know how much he is really recognizing in what he's doing in this book. But the whole thing is that God gives us free will. Now, what that means is that we are capable of good or evil. We are capable of being noble or being villainous or treacherous,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But the only reason that choosing to do good has any meaning, any significance, is because we don't have to choose good,
Right.
because we're capable of choosing what would be labeled like sinful behavior. We can be, virtuous, or we can be full of vice. But the only reason that we get any credit for doing good is because we don't actually have to, because we have the capacity to do evil, to be completely self-interested, to hurt other people. We can hurt or we can help. All of this stuff. So isolating yourself on the island and then saying that, oh, we're not treacherous, is like, but that's not how it works. Just denying
Right.
yourself the ability. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that,
Absolutely.
that anyway.
It's
And then,
you can't be considered good if you've never had the opportunity to
right,
be evil.
correct, correct. So this entire thing of the
Yeah.
island is, I'm just like, it's beginning with such a false premise of what it means to be good or to be treacherous.
Hmm.
It's like about your, like, oh, if you just deny a person's ability, like, do you know what I mean? If you took like
Yeah.
a violent murderer and then you just put them in a jail cell, then you say they're good, they don't kill
Right.
anymore. It's like, yeah, but they want to. Like, that doesn't
Yeah.
make them good. Just because you've denied them the ability to choose to do awful things doesn't
Yeah.
make them good. But they seem to think that being like, there's just this general concept of being on this island means, well, we don't engage in treachery because we're here. And then it's like, ooh, but we might be tempted if we're like actually immersed, and we need to immerse ourselves. Even that is, I mean, he misses such a great opportunity to use this whole thing of, it often gets described within Christianity as being in the world but not of the world, right? That is our call as Christians, is to be in the world but not of the world.
Yeah.
And the way it often gets described is a boat is on the ocean, right? That you could have a boat on the ocean, but the ocean is not in the boat.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That a
Yeah.
boat is traveling on the ocean.
Yeah.
It's of the ocean, but it's not in the ocean.
Right. Yeah.
Like, yeah, or sorry, I got that mixed up. I got it the other way around. But basically, I'm just saying that you don't want the ocean itself to be inside your boat, because then you're going to sink, and then you're just going to become exactly like the ocean. You're just going to be
Right.
full of water, right?
Yeah.
That you can interact with it, but you don't ever actually internalize it. That's just
Yeah.
such a foundational principle. And I think that Jewish people would agree with that too, that you interact with the world, but you don't become like the world.
Right.
That so even their thing of like, we'll go back and we'll immerse ourselves in the world. It's like, well, that's a terrible way of viewing it. Why would you immerse yourself in the world? It's
Right.
interact with the world, but don't immerse yourself in the world. There's plenty of
Yeah.
stuff with which I will not immerse myself, where, you know what I mean? Like, just like as a random thing to point out, that there's an entire subculture of drug use. I don't do drugs, but there's a whole bunch of that. I'm in the world. I need to immerse myself. I need to know all this stuff. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, that's
Yeah.
not for me. Like,
Right.
I'm not interested in that. I don't immerse myself there or there or there. Does it go on around me? Sure, but that has nothing to do with my life.
Right.
Right? It's
Yeah.
happening around me, but I'm not internalizing any of it. And
hmm
so that's what I'm saying. I'm going, if you're looking for insights, like, I just feel like, don't offer insights. Don't offer insights if you don't have anything insightful to say. And then
Right.
we'd all be better off. That's all that I really wanted to say with chapter 14.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Uh yeah, I don't have much else to say other than uh I love the fact that the final word is, Beatrice, that it is kind of this reveal, whether or not you had already come to that conclusion. Um, this this reveal of Beatrice Baudelaire being the name of their mother, and Beatrice being the one who Lemony Snicket has pined after. And as you had mentioned when we were reading the AirSats elevator, that is one of the main reasons for Lemony Snicket feeling compelled to write the story of the Baudelaires. Um, yeah, it just I think that really wraps things up pretty nicely.
Yeah, I agree. I think he did a good job with that. That's a decent enough ending. It's appropriate to
Yes.
end the series with that.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to move into a broader discussion about the book series as a whole? Where, I guess, like, do you want to just like go through some of our favorite and least favorite things from the series?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, where do you want to start?
I suppose let's start off with our favorite invention.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Sure. My favorite invention is the grappling hook from The Bad Beginning.
Okay. The
Violet does
first
a great,
invention.
yeah, Violet does a great job of making that thing from coat hangers, and it is incredibly dangerous. Like
Is that
she,
not the only time that they get injured?
yeah.
I remember you pointing this out in the first book. You go like, "Oh, but see, there's like some danger." I'm like, "She got a scratch," and I was
Right.
hoping that there'd be more, but I don't think they've bled even once since then.
Yeah. You raise a good point. I don't think that they did.
They get infected with the medusoid mycelium
Yeah.
in book 13th, and Sunny does in the penultimate peril, or the Grim Grotto.
Yeah, the Grim
I think.
Grotto. Yeah.
Yeah. But aside from that, then
Yeah.
they don't even get injured. But yeah, okay, the grappling hook.
Yeah. It's a great invention that it actually makes sense that, she's able to make it from the things around her, and, sure, she's able to climb far better than you would imagine she would be able
They're
to,
great
but
climbers. They can
yes,
climb anything.
they are indeed great climbers. But I mean, at the very least, climbing that way, if she had her feet on the wall, like
Sure.
the exterior wall, then that makes it significantly easier. Um,
Yes.
so
Still very difficult.
right,
But
yeah.
yes.
All right, and your favorite invention?
My favorite invention is from the Vile Village when Violet somehow invents erosion. Get over that. She called it an invention. They just
Right.
poured water down like a clay wall all night long, and then that like just disintegrated the bricks because it eroded. She literally called it an invention, like with like the
Yep.
bread, and you like collect the water, then you squeeze it again, and then it's like, oh, that'll take out these bricks. And then she's like, I invented it. I'm like, you invented erosion? Okay. There's all kinds of things like do you know what I mean? Do we say that Newton invented gravity? I mean, I guess some people do say that, but like not smart people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But she's not even the first one to discover it. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like I should start saying things like that. I invented this thing that's just a natural occurrence that's been around for a long time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Um, all right, what do you want to cover next?
I want to hear who was your favorite Guardian?
Okay, so I've got two for this one. I'll say Uncle Monty as the actual favorite Guardian because, and I mean, I tried thinking about it, and I wasn't quite sure who else would even stand out because they only get Guardians like for half of the series, not even. Uh,
Yeah, I know it's a bit ambiguous as to, what you would consider a Guardian. Like the denouements, are they Guardians or?
right. But
Um,
yeah, Uncle
yeah.
Monty was fun enough.
Mhm.
So I kind of liked him. But then it's not a guardian, but just a maybe favorite character, let's say, would be the optimist Phil.
Yes, that's a great point.
Like,
He's so funny whenever he is on the page.
yeah, like he doesn't get a lot of dialogue, but all of his dialogue is hilarious. So yeah,
Absolutely.
so he's not a guardian, but I really enjoyed it when anytime they interacted with him.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. How about you? Your favorite Guardian?
Uncle Monty. He's just so good with like the cake that he serves, with like taking them to the movies every night, and or maybe not every night, but he takes
No,
them,
I think it says every night.
okay, yeah. Um, and treating them as the skilled individuals that they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he was a perfect guardian, and I'm sad that we didn't get more of him. That he was
Agreed.
killed off so quickly.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, do you
also,
want to do? Go ahead.
I'm going to spring this on you. What was your favorite Count Olaf disguise?
Um, that's a good question. I would say I kind of like the one on the island when he's got the seaweed wig and he's a pregnant lady and
Right.
nobody buys it, but he just continues to insist that he is actually pregnant. And then like I mean it sounds awful, but then you've got Ishmael like because Olaf is still insisting that he's pregnant, and then Ishmael just shoots him in his pregnant belly,
Right.
right? Killing him. But I'm like, you aimed for the baby, knowing that he's not actually pregnant. But do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
especially awful.
Aim for the
Right,
head.
right. So anyway, yeah, I would say that's my favorite disguise, I guess, because it's just so ridiculous. Anyway,
Yeah.
what about you?
I believe it's man, there are a lot of really good ones, but I think I'm gonna have to go with Detective what was it? Dupin, I think,
Okay.
from the Vile Village when he was dressed as that cool
I was
daddy-o.
gonna say the cool daddy-o. Like I
Yeah,
really liked that one too.
it's so much fun.
Um, all right, can we might as well because I don't want to save these for last. But do you want to do some least favorites?
Sure. Yeah, yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. What would be your least favorite book?
I was thinking about it, and I think, as sad as it is, the Carnivorous Carnival. It has,
Oh,
it has all the things that you would think I would love about it. Um, but like, I love the fact that the Baudelaires are in disguise. I really enjoy the setting, but I mean, I don't know, he just does nothing with the setting.
Right.
And
Agreed.
and even like the freaks as they're called,
Right.
um, then they're like, I don't know, the fact that they just become part of Olaf's troop and then don't really do anything for the rest of the series. I'm
Yep.
just like, but why did you bother? Like you could have just kept writing off all these different characters and nobody would have thought anything different. It's just yeah, instead then you're like, here's three extra freaks for
Yeah.
Olaf's crew. And of course, the mention of there being an engine on board the roller coaster cart, as it's called.
Yes. Did you notice that the fan belt finally showed up, that it washed up on the island?
Yes, I did. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I figured you would. I was actually surprised that you didn't bring it up when we were talking about it.
I considered it, but I had a lot of notes for those last
Right.
five chapters.
Right. All right. So my least favorite, I've got two on here because I'm kind of torn. Um, I would say like probably the end is my least favorite book because I just have so many issues with what he's doing. It's he's becoming more ambitious in the book, and at first then it seemed great, and it's sort of like if you see somebody who is when you see like balance artists at like a carnival or something like that, it's like I'm going to be riding a unicycle and put all of these like china plates on my head. Do you know what I
Right?
mean?
Yeah.
That it's
Yeah.
like watching him like reading through the end, I was like, ooh, okay, oh, be delicate. That's really delicate. That's really delicate. And then just crash. And
Right.
so I feel like that's why I think it's my least favorite book because it could have been my favorite. And
Mhm.
if up until the chapter 9 or 10, it was probably my favorite, and then it fell apart.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so that I guess it had the most possibility, the most potential, and therefore it ended up being the most disappointing. But also the Airsats elevator is just brutal. It's so
Right.
brutal. The
Yeah.
the up and down, and they're just stuck in this elevator shaft. And
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, I maintain that the first like four chapters of that book are really, really strong.
yeah,
But
no, you're right. You're right. It's
yeah.
those middle chapters that really drag.
Yeah. And then the up and down with the elevator shaft as well. Then it's just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. We'll do another least favorite, and then we'll move back to favorites. So, what is your least favorite moment in the
It
series?
it is the elevator shaft climbing from the AirSats elevator. Um, you know, pick one.
Agreed.
Like,
Of all of the things that are problematic with that.
yeah, like, is it the time when they just decide to climb all the way down and it takes them hours,
How
and they're perfectly fine and they don't at any point know that um, that the quagmires are at the bottom? Is it the fact that they don't talk to the quagmires at all during their travels up? Is it the fact that they have to travel back down? Is it the fact that Sunny climbs up using her teeth? It's just all what in the world?
agreed? Agreed. Uh, yeah, yeah,
And
okay.
for you, least favorite moment?
Um, I again have got two, so it's kind of a double, but I would say there's multiple moments of this happening, but the objectification of Violet, specifically the uh,
Mm,
to some degree, like the just the descriptions of her in her physical attractiveness, like in terms
right.
of how Olaf feels about her, then
Yep.
it's just so creepy and awful.
Yep.
The series would work if you didn't have any of that stuff. There's no purpose for it whatsoever.
Yep.
And I don't think it belongs in middle grade fiction. And
Mhm.
then also the sexual references that you get, including, I think the most egregious example is him having Le Petit Mort, which
Right.
is like encouraging kids to go and look that up. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he doesn't necessarily encourage them to look that up, but he's definitely including it, and he's already instructed them to look up all these unfamiliar words. So
Right.
it's those things that I mean, I don't really, I take issue to some degree with the term, but basically those problematic elements, that those would be my least favorite moments.
Yeah.
But you make a good case for everything to do with the Ersatz elevator, as it was my least favorite book.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's move back into some favorites. So I guess let's do.
I
I
want to
guess
do
we'll.
favorite book first.
I was going to say let's do favorite book, and then we'll get into favorite moment.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to go first for favorite book?
Sure. I would say probably The Grim Grotto is my favorite book because I think that it's the best written and it holds up in terms of pacing.
Yeah.
Then it is the best paced novel that he has in the series. And you get a variety of settings. All of the other books, it's just one setting for the entire book. I said it before when I forget which podcast it was, but I said it feels like he's writing the way a filmmaker films when they have no budget. It's
Right.
We can't do that. We don't have the budget for that. And I'm like, it's a book. The only budget is your imagination. Why are you staying in only one setting for the entirety of this book? And like every book is like that. It's just here's the one location you're going to get. But with the Grim Grotto, we actually have movement.
Yes.
So I appreciate the pacing with that.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is, him thinking about potential, film or television adaptations.
Ooh, wow. If he did, that is putting the cart ahead of the horse.
Yeah.
Because the chances of getting anything to go actually into production and everything I've heard in publishing is do not think that way whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
Because it probably won't work that well as a book, and there's no guarantee that they would ever turn it into a movie, even if it was a great book. But if you think that way, then it's probably going to be a not great book.
Right.
So it's even less likely that they'll turn it into a film. But and then I had a runner-up for favorite book, which would be The Austere Academy. And
okay.
Yeah, I like the fact that you finally meet their peers, that you have kids, and certainly meeting the Quagmires is good, and the first date that you have with Violet and which one is it? Duncan?
Yes. Yeah. Quigley comes later.
Right.
And by the way, that one reference in the end where Violet's like, which of the Quagmires was it who said my name? And Kit's just like, I don't know.
It's amazing. It's so amazing.
It's like, that is so awful. Like, one of them cried out your name before they died, potentially.
Yeah.
You'll never know which one.
Everything about that, though, just highlights how weird that whole thing is. It's the two triplets, two of the triplets that you were interested in both and you had a romantic history with both of them, then one of them cried out your name. Which one? I don't know. And it's the fact that you're even asking which one is a problem in and of itself.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I did appreciate that kind of came up, and that was the answer.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So for my favorite books, then since I basically had the same ones as you, Grim Grotto is number one, and The Austere Academy is number two. Then I'd like to take this opportunity to quickly do, I guess, a shout out to The Penultimate Peril. I really enjoy the setting of this hotel, which is actually a giant library, and that it explores, how the Dewey Decimal System works, the pond out front that, reflects the hotel and the hidden library there. I think that all of that just works really, really well for me. And I think it's probably it was probably the most anticipated book in the series for me at the time, because I had been reading through them, just whenever I had time and whatever. But when I finally finished The Grim Grotto, then The Penultimate Peril had not come out yet. And so I was actually waiting for it to come out.
Right.
And so reading it for the first time was like, wow, this is so great. And then, yeah, so I think that has I have a lot of fond memories associated with that one. But also the wide window. I really appreciate, all the grammar stuff in it.
I don't like the grammar, but I really like the setting of the wide window.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
The wide window is similar to the Grim Grotto in that it actually has movement. They actually
Hmm.
travel.
Yeah.
Um, they arrive there, they go up to the house, and it's an interesting setting, but then they travel across the lake in a hurricane. Then you have Curdled Cave, and then they like head back. You know what I mean? You get like the leeches, all of that. Like there's actually movement in the
Yes.
story,
Yeah.
and the rest of them, there really isn't very much at all. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So were you saying though that the Grim Grotto and the Austere Academy are two of your favorites though?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So we're actually like we agree then about favorite books.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Okay. Um all right. So let's get into favorite moments. Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. So I've got two because I just couldn't decide and whatever. It's my podcast. I can do whatever I want. So
Yeah.
the the first one is from the reptile room, and it's just such a tiny little thing. It's when they go to the movie theater and they see zombies in the snow, and then the description of the ending of the film, where the zombies and the villagers rise up together in celebration of May Day, and it's Workers of the World Unite, essentially, right?
Right.
Which is like International Workers Day, and this whole thing because zombies are. I've talked about it on the actual podcast when we discussed it, but I actually am something of an expert on zombie literature and zombie fiction, and zombies like within academia have been interpreted as being representative of the underclass and laborers and marginalized oppressed people. And so with these poor villagers, the fact that through May Day, I honestly don't think Handler did any of that intentionally, but it's
Right.
so perfect. And you had asked me before if I would see zombies in the snow, and I'm like, yes, desperately. That would have fit with my master's research project so well.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. That is a great moment.
Yeah.
And I believe, as memory serves, that we get more of Zombies in the Snow in the Netflix series.
Oh,
So,
sweet.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, that was my first one. And then do you want me to give my second favorite moment now?
Yeah, sure. Because I kind of have two as well, but they're kind of related. So, yeah.
Okay. So my second favorite is when Phil the Optimist, his leg gets smashed, and then he's like, "Oh, at least I still have another leg," or whatever he says, because he already had this reference of an
Yep.
optimist would say this if like they lost a leg, and then
Yep.
somebody's like, "Boy, I would have thought that he would have screamed, 'Ow, my leg, my leg,'" which is like exactly what Snicket had just set up before,
Yep.
and the fact it's so funny, not just because it's a good setup and then payoff for a joke, and it's a good structure for a joke itself, but also the fact that you don't think that Phil, like, I guess a lot of people, their attitude towards optimists is that they actually have just had a kind of blessed or privileged life.
Mm.
They're not actually that optimistic. And
Right.
if they ever experience tragedy, they wouldn't respond optimistically. They wouldn't be happy. And
Right.
and then Phil actually gets his leg crushed and he still is actually happy.
Yep.
And then it's just like, well, I'll be.
At least no one will ever ask if I'm right or left-footed.
Thank you. That was it. At least nobody will ever ask about right or left foot. That was the setup for it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I say, it was really satisfying because at least I tend to view things that way as well, right? With like a lot of optimists, they're like, ooh, well, you should be grateful that like you've got 2 feet. You know what I mean? That whole expression of like, oh, I felt badly because I had bad shoes, and then I saw a guy who had no feet, and it was just like,
Right.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, that is a absolutely terrific moment. I really, really love it.
Yeah.
It did not come to mind when I was trying to come up with my favorite moments, and now I'm sad that it wasn't. But I do have two favorite moments that are kind of related. The first is the Cafe Salmonella.
Yes.
It's not salmonella, but
Salmon.
salmonella. And then also the anxious clown from the wide window. Um, and yeah, both of them, it's just so great to, um, see these restaurants that are, just, I don't know, they're so outlandish, but they're like um, novelty restaurants, right? Like they're
Right.
based on one thing and they
Yes.
just really go hard on that
Right.
one thing.
Right.
Like the cheer up cheeseburgers. And I'm like, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Love it. And like
Yeah.
the waiters that are dressed in salmon
I
costumes.
feel like this was a thing that was really popular in like the 90s and early
Mm.
2000s. Don't you? Like themed restaurants.
Yeah,
Like that's what
probably.
like the Rainforest Cafe, as
Right.
far as I remember, like when it really like became a hit. And there's just a whole bunch of those things where uh,
Yeah,
you
that's a
know,
good
all
point.
I think, yeah, like even like the restaurants with like Hooters and stuff
Mm.
like that, where there's specific themes to the restaurant, or like when they like not necessarily were created but popularized. Like, so I feel like he was kind of hitting on this thing that is doesn't exist as much anymore. I mean, like
Right.
there's still a thing, but it's not, you don't hear about this new themed restaurant all the time the way I
Right.
think you did at the time. And I think that's the funny thing is you go, it's not even that outlandish. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point. Because yeah, it balances that line, that wire very, very well of like, you know, it's a little outlandish, but it's also just like it's so close to reality that I could totally buy into
right,
it.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good one. What's your other favorite moment?
Oh no,
Oh, it was just the
Cafe
two examples.
Salmonella was the
Okay.
one,
Okay.
and then the Anxious Cloud is the other.
Right. Right.
Because they're very different, but they're both just so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Um, all right. Did you have any like final thoughts for the book series? Because I feel like we're probably going to continue to talk about the book series as we go through the original, like the film from 2004, Jim Carrey, and then the Netflix series. So I feel like we'll continue to come back to the book series. But anything else that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, so I had a quick question for you, and I'm certain that I know the answer. Are you going to read it again?
It's highly unlikely. I would, if I were to give odds on it, I would say there is a less than 1% chance that I will read this
Right.
again. Um,
Are you glad that you read it?
uh, Not in particular, but honestly, that sounds worse than it is. Um, I mean, I've spent 6 years in university studying English literature, like you know what I mean, and so I have spent far more time reading much more painful stuff that like I don't think that these books are necessarily painful. It's just they're not for me. So, but
Right.
I'm saying that I've
Yeah.
spent much more time reading stuff that I'm really not interested in or I really disagree with. And this was like enjoyable, even when I disagree with
Right.
a lot of the. I mean, because my issues are, and they remain fairly consistent, that I'm not a big fan of this particular approach to postmodern literature. I
Mm.
don't like this type of ironic, detached, insincere style of writing. I don't really like the use of pastiche. I don't like the fact that he doesn't dramatize events. The I'm not really a big fan of puns and wordplay, and like I'm just not like it's that's not my type of comedy.
And that is
And
my type of comedy.
right, exactly. So I'm saying, like, I'm not saying that it's a
Yeah.
bad series. I'm saying it's just it doesn't meet my sensibilities, my taste at all.
Yeah.
And so I don't really like those elements. And then getting into more ideological, philosophical, religious worldviews, then I don't find much of interest in the series. I don't think
Mhm.
that he's really doing anything. It's so simplistic
Right.
that I don't find enough to really engage my mind there. And also he introduces a whole bunch of ideas but doesn't explore them. And I just find that frustrating as a reader. It's not satisfying. And I don't always need literature to satisfy me, because I think that's a bad approach as a reader, to just say, just give me what I want all the time. But I'm saying he never pays off, like, or at least so rarely pays off, and
Yeah, it's
spends so much time asking these questions and teasing us, asking us directly again and again and again, and then doesn't give us the answer.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's yeah, you're right, and I think that it is uh it's I mean that is a matter of taste, obviously, of but I think that that Daniel Handler, or potentially, Lemony Snicket, um, focused too heavily on the idea of what matters is the journey, not the destination. And it's like, now you still need to have the destination though, or else the journey feels kind of shallow.
Right, but even the journey itself, then you can dramatize along the way. You can actually
Right.
dramatize the action.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing, is that I did not care about the plot because he didn't make them plot driven.
Right.
They're not plot driven. They're not
Yeah, that's
character
true.
driven.
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
what's driving any of this stuff? He says that it's all of these questions that we're going to explore, but then we never really get there. The only thing that I can think is they're sort of initially just the plot is an excuse to have fun little wordplay, and
Mhm.
then they become mystery stories for a little bit of, but then he doesn't actually reveal a lot of these mysteries, and
Mhm.
then it's sort of like, no, he's writing messages to his sister, but not actually, and it doesn't really get explored too deeply. And then in the last book, it seems like, oh, these things are supposed to be read allegorically as Holocaust literature or
Right.
post-Holocaust literature with the diaspora of Jewish people. And then it's like, but that doesn't really hold up even for the entirety of the last book. So
Right.
I'm just like, what exactly is propelling any of this stuff? And
Mhm.
if you get enough enjoyment out of the wordplay along the way, and that you, I mean, even the characters, then he occasionally tries to add some depth and profundity to what they say, but for the most part, they remain two-dimensional characters throughout the entire series, and that seems to be intentional, right?
Right.
That there's
Yeah.
nothing that really characterizes Violet aside from, I'm an inventor, let me tie up my hair and put on my inventing mind, and Klaus, I can read anything and everything, and Sunny, I like to bite things, I like to cook things. But
Right.
what else is there about them? Like, and after
Yeah.
13 books. So I'm saying they're not character driven, they're not plot driven, and I don't really know what is propelling any of this stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it is a good point. And yeah. I guess the one final thing that I really want to talk about, we kind of mentioned this in our chapter 9 to 13 of Book the 13th discussion, is who started the Baudelaire fire? And I know that you said that you don't really care. Um, I have always strongly believed, well, maybe not strongly believed, or not even always, but I am of the mind that the Baudelaire fire was, in fact, started by Lemony Snicket. That he caused the death of Bertrand and Beatrice Baudelaire and
Mm.
caused the Baudelaire orphans to be orphans. And that's an additional reason for why he feels compelled to tell all these stories of their, unfortunate events that they had to go through because of him.
Yeah, I think that's a good reading, and it adds it explains a lot.
Yeah.
It justifies the series, that I guess you could say that's what's propelling the series,
Hmm.
but it's never revealed to us directly.
Yeah.
I don't think that is a bad reading. I think it's a really good reading, but I'm saying I think that this would have been far more effective if there was some kind of payoff with that.
Right. Yeah, and I think like obviously the closest that he gets is with the well, yeah, with I mean, he mentions that, he kind of feels responsible because of the whole Sugar Bowl incident,
Hmm.
with him stealing the Sugar Bowl, and it wasn't Beatrice. And so Esme being mad at Beatrice, then she should have actually been mad at Lemony. But but yeah, and then with, Count Olaf revealing that he didn't burn down, or, in indicating to the Baudelaires that it might not have been him who burned down the Baudelaire mansion, then I
Hmm.
think that, as Lemony Snicket is writing this, and he doesn't want to say outright, you know, that he burned down their house and caused them to be orphans, but this is sort of his confession, and that's why he's, on the run. Some of the author descriptions say that he is, wanted for arson, um, and things of that nature. So it is that is my reading, and I believe it's been a long time since I last read the unauthorized autobiography.
Hmm.
Um, but I believe there's something in there, like that's coded in there,
Mm.
uh, that essentially says like I killed Beatrice,
Hmm.
um, uh, something like that. And again, like it's been a long time, but
Yeah.
and that's sort of what like recontextualizes the series for me, is like thinking about it as like, this man is, desperately trying to, chronicle the misadventures because he feels so guilty over what he's done.
But what good does it do?
That's a good question. Well, he says, you are my last hope, that the tales of the Baudelaire orphans are. Oh man, I don't think that it's in Book of 13th, so I'm
It's
struggling
okay.
here. But you are my last hope, that the tales of the Baudelaire orphan will be revealed to the world. And so I think that this is his explanation for why the Baudelaires, who do eventually get, you know, pursued
Hmm.
by the authorities, then this is his way of clearing them of all those charges, of being like, I may have caused them to go down this bad road, but it's not as bad as you think, because all these things are actually, contextually, they're not bad.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, that again, like that's it's a lot to chew on and to think through, but that's why like I think that that's what the series is trying to do. Um, and yeah, it could be more effective if we did get a better reveal of Lemony Snicket admitting that he was
I guess, yeah, that's
responsible
what I'm
for the
saying
fire
is
there.
that's a pathetic confession if it's his confession. That's not really him taking responsibility. It's
Mm.
him, dancing around, like beating around the bush for
Right.
13 books and
Yeah.
still never quite getting to the point. And I don't know what this within this story universe, presumably these books have been published within
Right.
the universe in which the Baudelaires live,
Hmm.
that they're going to read, they're going to find out, one would think, about these books. Would you not? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but like the intention that Lemony has is alleviating his own guilt, as well as uh, clearing the Baudelaire of the charges laid against them. And so
I
it's
guess.
not exactly his confession, um, but yeah, it's not his confession, but but it is, a selfish undertaking of trying to clear the Baudelaires for his
I guess it's
own.
unclear where they're even at by the end of this book, so I don't know what difference it makes
Mm,
because these books have been published, like at least this one, like, you know what I mean? They're now leaving the island, and well, what's happened with Justice Strauss? What's happened with the High Council?
right.
Are they still under suspicion of any of these things? Mr. Poe sees them, and he's like, "You're under suspicion of stuff," but he's not like, "You guys need to be in jail." He doesn't even
Right.
say that. So there doesn't really seem to be any indication one way or the other whether they need some kind of, um, defense.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and I will say that that is probably my biggest issue with the book series is that it is so unclear as to when Lemony Snicket is writing this,
Yeah,
from a story perspective.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Um, so, all right. I mean, I'll ask you. I do want to wrap this up fairly soon,
Mhm.
but so how did you feel about reading through this series with me? Because I don't know if you've talked to anybody else like with reading through the series before. And I'm sure you have not talked to somebody in detail the way we have, and like as
Right.
being as intentional and thorough as we've been. But did you enjoy this experience?
I did. Yeah, it gives me a greater appreciation for that we did along the ways of pulling apart these different references and allusions and all these things. Then I have a greater appreciation for how much is in them, as well as being um, more knowledgeable about the failures of the books, that I have, a better
Right,
understanding of the books in general, which
right.
is good. That, I'm not, you know, just looking at them through rose-colored glasses
Exactly.
of being like, oh, they're perfect and they're so great, because they're not. And I know that they're not. And, specifically looking at them now, then it's like, well, I just have a more realistic sense of what they are.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean,
And
like,
as to your other question of like, if I had spoken with other people about them, um, uh, I know that I did, talk a little bit with our sister Emily,
mm,
um, about them because she had been reading through them a little bit as well. She might have been the way that I was introduced to the series in the first place.
mm,
I don't remember, uh, but yeah, and I ended up being, you know, more interested in continuing to read the series than I think she was, because I don't know if she's ever finished reading it.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
so so yeah, we talked a little bit, when the movie came out. We went to go see it in theaters. When the Netflix series came out, then I ended up getting our mom to watch it, as well as our other sister Amanda. So I kind of got other people to engage with it and talked about it that way, but again, not really in an intentional, focused uh, way as what we've done.
Right, right. Okay, that makes sense. And I mean, I've heard that from multiple people where they have read, they've started the series, read several books in the series, but they give up partway through.
Hmm.
And I think that that makes perfect sense because it's just like the series shifts in tone and purpose throughout, and it's unclear where it's heading, and it doesn't even really get there.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't blame people for abandoning ship partway through. And I'm kind of surprised at how successful this series has been. I would say, like,
Hmm.
I mean, I knew they were very, very popular, and
Yeah.
I expected more, to be honest. Um, with that being said, and where I said before that there's a less than 1% chance that I would read this again, and I'm not really pleased that I've read the series, but like that's not saying anything. I read a lot.
Right.
So I read
Yeah.
a lot of things that disappoint me. Like this is by no means the first or the most like egregious example of it by any means whatsoever. But it's if I have a purpose behind my reading, then and oftentimes I will read something even if I know that I probably won't like it because if it's big enough within the zeitgeist, the cultural zeitgeist, then I do want to have a sense of what's going on with something.
Hmm.
And sometimes I really enjoy it and sometimes I don't. But with the series, there is enough interesting stuff that I feel like potentially there's like less than 1% chance, but I might try to write something, some kind of essay on it, something, you know, fairly academic, because there's a couple things we brought up multiple times throughout the series where it was like, that would make a really good essay. That'd be a really interesting theme to explore in the books. And exploring to some degree some of the not problematic elements of the books, but the way the books are, I'm trying to think of what the right term would be, but I've said it before that like what literary criticism tends to do is we're trained as literary critics to look for points in a text that stand out from the rest. And there's enough in the series that just stand out and you go, oh, that's really interesting. Because I think if you looked at it and then you reread the series and you look at these books as being an example of Jewish literature, and more specifically the diaspora effect of Jewish people in a post-Holocaust world, that you could get some really interesting readings that come out of that. And then you have a purpose for reading the books like that. And I mean, because I did like my master's research project on the Walking Dead comic books, and I don't think that the Walking Dead comic books are, you know, the pinnacle of human like knowledge and like the pinnacle of literature itself. There's a lot that I love about them, but there's also stuff that's just like ridiculous. And some of the stuff that's ridiculous though makes sense in my particular reading, where I say, if you don't take this theory that I have, this particular, like if you don't follow my thesis, then these things don't make sense. But if you use this lens, then the entire series opens up and it becomes about something completely different. And then there's a really rewarding reading that you can get from it. And that's typically how I like to approach a piece of literature, but I need to read it first and then just have general reactions. So this is essentially like what we just did is, this is a first reading, and I just tried to not replicate, but actually show this is how I, reading through a series, react the first time. And then from there, I know what I would look for the next time I read the series if I wanted to do something, like if I wanted to teach these books in a college classroom or something like that. It'd be too big to do, but you know, or if I wanted to write a paper on them, then I now know what I would look for. But you don't know what to look for until you actually do a first reading.
And I should say that like the reason why I enjoy rereading them is because of the mystery elements, you know, the elements of, you know, VFD, and, you know, looking back on it, as I had mentioned, you know, like the stuff about the Duchess of Winnipeg that comes up several times, the thing about, you know, the dragonfly costume, which I believe is said to be worn by Beatrice at one point. So all of that kind of works together, and trying to piece together this other story that that has been happening, you know, before, during, and presumably after the series takes place. And I kind of like I really enjoy the the way that that's done, where it is something that is separate from the major story, you know, as, you know, children experience the world. And there are all these things that are going on around them that they don't know are happening. And they're so focused on their own lives that they don't know all the bigger stuff. And as they're, you know, coming of age, as they're getting to know the world, then they're starting to pick up on these things. But yeah, and I mean, even in I believe it's book 8, I think it's book 7. Then there's a there's a reference to what Count Olaf will do with the Quagmire triplets, and they say that he has a plan to bring them to some faraway island. And so reading that, then it's like, oh, it's referencing this island that he actually wanted to go there in the end, like
for some unknown purpose. He wants money. How are you going to spend money on this island?
No idea.
Why would you need any money if everything washes up there anyway? Anyway.
Oh,
So,
I think they say that he would hide them away on this island
oh, hide them.
until
Okay.
until
Right.
they came of age, and then
Right.
like yeah,
Okay.
use them to get their fortune. But
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
So I feel like maybe leaving it off there for now, because like I say, we're
Mhm.
going to get into different adaptations
Yes.
of this, and that I'm sure we'll continue to come back to these books. So just, I'm kind of curious though, kind of like one last thought from you, or at least a question that I have. So how long, I'm assuming that you want to reread the series, that at some point you will reread the series.
Yeah, at some point.
Yeah. So how much did I ruin this for you? How long do you have to wait to like wash off all of this?
30 years.
Okay. Okay. How long it's going to take to forget all of the stuff that I've said.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, honestly, like it'll probably be at least 5 years
Yeah.
before I feel like, I have
That's what I figure. I
time
figured
and,
5. Yeah.
and have, yeah, kind of forgotten a lot of what we talked about. But, as I'm rereading them, then I'll reflect on the things that we did talk about and, maybe have a different reading of it at that point. And
Right. Yeah.
that's what I enjoy about getting, deeper meaning out of it, and a different understanding. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I guess this will be my final thought on it, that not a lot of people, you know, have the time, interest, or opportunity to pursue like a college education program or a
Mhm.
university, like to be an English major in a university program. But this is like kind of what it's like. But it's the purpose behind it, though, is really it ends up being the biblical concept of iron sharpening iron, right? That
Right.
it's that if you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
two, at least two, but like in a graduate classroom, then you have, a dozen or so highly intelligent, educated, interested readers who are carefully going through a text and then coming up with different interpretations
Mhm.
and providing evidence from the text to support it, and then having discussions and pulling it apart and building ideas on top of ideas, right?
Yes.
That it's
Yeah.
just the overall understanding increases when we pool our knowledge together, and that we end up getting far more out of it when we actually have engaged intentional discussions on a text, whatever the text is,
Yeah.
that essentially everybody benefits.
Yes.
Which I guess is
Yeah.
a good way of saying please comment,
Absolutely.
please engage, because that
Yeah.
just helps the overall discussion.
Share it with more people
Yeah,
so
share it
that
with
they
more
can.
people would help too.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you've made it this far, then clearly you enjoy what we have to say. You surely have gotten some kind of, additional appreciation for the series. Maybe it was your first time reading the series, in which case, yeah, what a great way to read through it for the first time, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
genuinely think so too.
yeah.
So yeah, we would love to hear from you. Any
Mhm.
reactions that you have to any of that stuff, whether it's
Absolutely.
commenting below or even our social media links, which are posted in the description below, to feel free to contact us, like with direct messages or whatever on there, because that's kind of
Mhm.
what they're there for.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll leave it off there for now. And then next week, we're going to continue on with Woeful Wednesdays, except now it's going to be Nathan watches a series of unfortunate events. Ignore the
Watching on
tattoo.
Wednesdays.
That's right. Watching on Wednesdays. Yeah, so we'll do that. It'll be the Jim Carrey film, which I know a lot of people don't like. So if you want to hate watch that with us, then feel free. I don't know. I've never seen it before. So I'm
Yep.
going to watch it for the first time. Uh, all right. Well, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Ignore the tattoo! A phrase here which means like, comment, subscribe, and share this podcast across the web. That may seem like a strange definition, but in this context, it is entirely accurate.